I moved to Briar Falls at the end of September, chasing quiet, cheaper rent, and the kind of small-town charm people romanticize online. During the day, it almost lived up to it, maple trees turning red, kids biking without helmets, neighbors waving like they'd known me for years. But at night, something felt wrong. Not in any obvious way, more like the air held its breath. My first week, I noticed something strange. Around 3 in the morning, the whole town went completely silent. Not the usual nighttime quiet, I mean dead silent. No passing cars, no wind, no dogs, as if everything living instinctively hid from something. I didn't think much of it until my second Thursday here. That night, I couldn't sleep, new house nerves, and I found myself scrolling on my couch when the digital clock on the stove changed to 3:17 a.m. At the exact moment the numbers flipped, a heavy thud echoed from my front door. Not a quick knock, not a person tapping impatiently. It was slow, measured, 3 beats. Thud, thud, thud. I froze, my thumb hovering above my screen. I don't know why, but the sound didn't feel like it belonged to a human hand. It was too heavy, too deliberate, like someone was striking the door with their knuckles bent the wrong way. I waited, expecting another series of knocks. Instead, the silence returned, but not a comforting one. This was the kind of silence that presses against your ears, like it's trying to listen. The next morning, I mentioned it to the woman living across the street, Mrs. Ellery, when we both stepped outside to grab our mail. She stiffened instantly, gripping the mailbox so hard the metal creaked. "You heard it," she said, not asked, stated. "The knock." I let out a shaky laugh, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, I guess someone was out late." "No," she whispered. "No one here goes outside at that hour." Then she lowered her voice even more. "And you must not answer, no matter what you hear. No matter how long it lasts." I stared at her, unsure if she was joking. Her face made it clear she wasn't. Before I could say anything else, another neighbor stepped onto her porch. The moment she saw us talking, she called out tightly, "Don't discuss it out loud." That's when it hit me. Everyone here already knew about the knock. Everyone except me. I wanted to laugh it off, convince myself this was some town joke they played on newcomers. But as the sun set that evening and the familiar heaviness settled over the neighborhood, my stomach knotted with dread. At 3:16 a.m., I was already awake, clutching my blanket with sweaty hands. And when the clock rolled over to 3:17, the knock came again, exactly the same as before, an echoing command that felt ancient, patient, and horribly certain I was listening. Thud, thud, thud. I didn't breathe, I didn't move, and I definitely didn't answer. But I had the sinking feeling someday it would knock harder. The next day, I tried to pretend nothing had happened. People do weird things in small towns. Maybe it really was some old local prank, a tradition meant to spook newcomers. But the way Mrs. Ellery had looked at me kept replaying in my head. The fear wasn't theatrical. It was the kind that settles in your bones. That afternoon, while taking the trash out, I saw my next-door neighbor, Caleb, sweeping leaves off his porch. He was in his late 60s, thin, with a posture that suggested he expected the world to jump at him at any second. Still, he smiled when he saw me. "You settling in all right?" he asked. I hesitated, then nodded. "Mostly, except for the knocking." His broom stopped midair. Slowly, he leaned the handle against the railing and motioned me closer, lowering his voice to a level that barely reached me. "You heard it twice now, didn't you?" I didn't answer. My silence was enough. Caleb rubbed his jaw as if debating whether he should continue. Then he spoke, the words coming out heavy, like he'd kept them locked away for years. "There used to be a man living 2 houses down from you. Name was Owens. Quiet guy, had a dog named Copper, nice old retriever." He swallowed hard. "One winter, Owens got the knock, same as you, thought it was some kid messing around. So he opened the door." A chill ran down my back. "What happened?" I asked. "That's the problem," Caleb whispered. "Nothing happened for 2 days. Owens went to work, walked his dog, talked to people. but everyone who saw him said he wasn't right, like he was trying to behave how a person should behave, but didn't understand the details. He stepped closer, the boards under his boots creaking. When he talked, his mouth moved wrong. He kept smiling at the wrong moments. His dog wouldn't go near him. Copper barked at him nonstop, like he was warning the whole street. I stared at Caleb, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. On the third morning, he continued, Owens didn't come out. We figured he overslept. By evening, the sheriff forced the door. Caleb's eyes shifted to the empty house 2 lots over. Inside, the furniture was moved, mirrors were gone. And Owens, the real Owens, was found in the attic crawlspace. I felt my pulse thudding in my ears. What do you mean, the real Owens? Caleb looked at me like he wished he'd never started the conversation. The one that opened the door wasn't him. My throat tightened. Then where is the other one? The thing... Caleb's gaze slid slowly toward the woods behind the street. Sheriff said it left the house on its own, but nobody saw it go. Some folks think it still knocks, looking for another place to slip into. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the sun. Caleb picked up his broom again. Listen to me. Don't touch your door at 317. Don't talk, don't even stand near it. The knock learns you. It studies you. He paused. And once you open up, even an inch, it comes in wearing your shape. That night, when 317 approached, I sat curled on my bed, knees pulled to my chest, waiting. The knock didn't come right away. But when it did, it sounded closer, more patient, almost curious. For the next few nights, I tried to pretend the knock was just a noise, a coincidence, a trick of an old house settling. But the truth was harder to ignore. Every night, I woke up a minute or two before 3:17 a.m., as if something inside me anticipated it. I stopped sleeping well. I kept all my lights on. The glow didn't make me feel safer, just exposed. On the 4th night after talking to Caleb, I noticed something new. The knock didn't come from the front door, not at first. At 3:14, I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow ones, heavy ones. The boards groaned under each step, the way they did when I walked across them, same weight, same rhythm. It was like listening to my own movements replayed. I crept toward the living room, staying several feet back from the door like Caleb warned me. My heart hammered so loudly I was scared whatever was outside could hear it. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. A long, stretched silence that felt too aware. And then came the knock. Except this time, it wasn't the blunt, unnatural thud I remembered. It was softer, almost polite. Tap, tap, tap. I covered my mouth with my hand. Somehow, this was worse. It felt intimate, like something gently asking permission to come in. When I didn't move, the tapping stopped. A full 20 seconds passed. Then, from the other side of the door, I heard breathing. Not human breathing. Not quite. Too steady, too deep, like someone with lungs larger than they should be. I wanted to run, but my legs locked. I couldn't tear my eyes from the door. I swear I saw the bottom edge of it shift inward, as if the wood bent under pressure. Then nothing, no knock, no breathing, not even footsteps leaving, just absolute, suffocating quiet. The next morning, I installed a peephole camera. It felt ridiculous, like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone, but I needed to see what was happening out there. That night, I sat in bed with my phone in my hand, watching the live feed. Minutes crawled by. The screen showed my porch washed in grainy infrared. At 3:17, the feed flickered, and something appeared. Not clearly, just a silhouette at the edge of the porch light. A person-shaped outline, but too tall, with arms that hung too low. When it shifted closer to the door, the camera glitched again, bending its form into streaks of static. My breath caught when I realized the figure wasn't looking at the door. It was looking up, straight into the camera, straight at me. The silhouette raised one hand, fingers long and uneven, and pressed it against the lens. The feed went black for 2 seconds, only 2, but in that darkness, I felt the unmistakable sensation that something stood inches from my door. When the camera flicked back on, the porch was empty. No footsteps walking away. No fading shape. Just nothing as if it had never been there. Except there was one new detail. The live feed now displayed a timestamp, 3:16 and 47 seconds. It had come earlier. It was adjusting, learning me. And the next night, I could feel it. It would come closer. By the fifth night, I stopped leaving my bedroom. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow cast by the streetlight outside made me flinch. Caleb's warnings echoed in my head. Don't even stand near the door. The knock studies you. But I was past standing. I was clinging to the corner of my bed like a child afraid of the dark. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I heard it again. Not the front door this time, not the porch. It came from inside, a low thump from the hall closet. I froze. My mind raced. Closets don't make noises. Closets don't move. But there it was, the unmistakable sound of something hitting the wooden door. Slow, deliberate, testing the barrier like it knew I was watching. I wanted to call Caleb, call the police, scream. My mouth worked, but no sound came out. My hands trembled so violently I dropped my phone onto the carpet. It clattered into the shadows, and I couldn't reach it without moving closer. Another thump, then a third, and then whispering. A faint, warped version of my own voice, coming from inside that closet. "It's just me. Let me out." I pressed myself flat against the bed frame, heart hammering so hard it felt like it would tear out of my chest. That voice, my voice, was coming from inside my own home, yet it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't. A sudden, sharp click made me jump. The closet handle moved, twisting slowly under an invisible force. The door creaked open a crack, just enough for darkness to spill into the hallway. My apartment, my safe space, suddenly felt like it had turned into a trap. I wanted to run past it, slam my bedroom door, lock myself in, but something held me back. Fear, yes, but also curiosity. An awful, terrible curiosity to see what was behind that door. I whispered to myself, trying to cling to reason. It's probably a raccoon. It has to be a raccoon. The hallway stretched out, longer than it should. Shadows pooled in corners where light never reached. I could see shapes, subtle distortions in the floorboards, walls that seemed slightly warped. My own furniture looked off. The couch closer to the bed than I remembered. The lamp tilted toward the closet, not away from it. Then the closet door fully opened. No raccoon, no animal, just darkness. But the darkness moved. A figure stepped out. Tall, slender, a distorted mirror of myself. It didn't walk, it glided. Limbs too long, fingers scraping the floorboards with an almost metallic sound. And when it paused, I realized the worst. Its head tilted just like mine does when I listen, the same nervous twitch in its eyes. It whispered again, my voice warped, shaking. "You let me in, now it's time to play." I stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the bed. The lights flickered, the air felt thick and heavy, like the house itself was breathing around me. I ran for the bedroom door, slammed it shut, pressed my shoulder against it. But through the thin wood, I could hear it moving, sliding its hand along the surface, pushing, probing, patient. And I knew, deep down, it wasn't going to stop. It had learned where I slept. It had found the weakest barrier. It was already inside. I barely slept that night. The bedroom door trembled intermittently, as if something outside kept testing it, studying my routine. The old floorboards groaned like they were whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. Every creak was louder than the last, echoing off walls that seemed to stretch and warp under the moonlight. I had never felt so aware of a house, so alive. By morning, I noticed the first signs of change. The kitchen table, which had always sat against the wall by the window, was now angled slightly toward the hallway. I could swear I hadn't moved it. The lamp in the living room, too, it leaned, casting long, unnatural shadows that made the corners of the apartment look deeper, darker. I chalked it up to exhaustion, but the feeling in my gut refused to lie. Something had altered the space while I slept. Something that understood me. That afternoon, I tried to leave the apartment to clear my head, but the door refused to budge. The lock clicked, twisted, but the handle wouldn't turn. The knock didn't come. I didn't even hear a whisper. And yet, when I looked through the peephole, the hallway outside seemed different. Narrower, more enclosed. The walls pressed in slightly, just enough to make the floorboards feel uneven beneath my feet. I stepped back, my stomach churning. This wasn't just a house. It was a trap. By nightfall, I realized it was worse. The closet from which it had emerged earlier was gone. In its place was a dark alcove that hadn't been there before. The hallway seemed longer, stretching beyond logic, shadows pooling where there should have been light. The digital clock on the stove read 3:16 p.m., though the sun was long gone. When it flipped to 3:17 a.m., a familiar sensation crept over me, that oppressive, measured weight of being watched. The knock started as usual, 3 slow beats. But then, for the first time, a fourth thud followed, faint, almost playful, like it was mocking my fear. I couldn't stay put. I had to move, had to see what it was doing to my home. Stepping into the hallway, I felt it shift beneath my feet, the floorboards bending, stretching. The air smelled metallic, like rust mixed with cold stone. I pressed my hand against the wall. It felt alive, pulsing. I walked toward the living room, and that's when I noticed something truly terrifying. The mirror above the couch reflected a hallway I didn't recognize. There were doors where there had never been doors, windows warped into jagged shapes, and my reflection, it wasn't mine. It was smiling, not the nervous, tired smile I knew I wore each morning. A wide, wrong smile stretching its face beyond the limits of humanity. The digital clock on the counter ticked over again. 3:17 a.m., and somewhere in the warped apartment, I could hear it whispering, my own voice echoing off walls that no longer followed any logic. "Come play with me, it's your turn now." I wanted to run, but every direction I took seemed to loop back, the walls shifting subtly enough that panic clawed at my throat. I realized then that this wasn't just a house anymore. It wasn't just a knock. It was a mind, and it had claimed the space I thought was mine. The next moment, I understood the most terrifying thing. No matter where I went, no matter which door I tried, it had already won. It had reshaped everything to trap me, and I was utterly alone. By the 6th night, I had stopped keeping track of time. The digital clock, once a small comfort, became a taunting reminder of inevitability. Every second crept toward 3:17 a.m., and I found myself unable to sleep even a minute earlier. The apartment was unrecognizable now. Hallways stretched beyond reason, doors appeared where they never had, and the walls seemed to pulse as if alive. At precisely 3:16, a whisper started. Faint, distant, almost imperceptible. "Come out!" I froze. My heart hammered like a drum in my chest. I strained to listen, sure that I was imagining it. But the whisper grew, layering itself with my own voice, twisted, warped, breaking into fragments of words I might have spoken in my worst moments. "It's me! Open up! Play with me!" I realized it wasn't outside the door. Not the hallway, it was inside. Somewhere in the shifting apartment, it had already invaded the space around me. The knocks started again, not at the door, but closer. Soft, deliberate thumps along the floorboards, creeping up toward my bedroom. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible, trying to convince myself I could hide. And then the voice changed. It wasn't just my voice anymore. It had learned me too well. It mocked my tone, mirrored my cadence, even replicated the nervous tremor I hated in my own speech. "Don't be afraid, just open the door, it's safe now." The words were ice in my veins. I had tried not to answer before, had tried to ignore the knock, but now it spoke with intimate familiarity, whispering secrets only I knew. It described my routines, my habits, even my smallest fears. Each revelation felt like a knife tracing my spine. I wanted to scream, to run, to shut my ears and pretend it wasn't real. But I couldn't. The voice was everywhere, behind the walls, beneath the floorboards, even in the shadows of the warped hallway. It wrapped around my consciousness like tendrils, suffocating yet mesmerizing. Then came a sound I hadn't heard before, a slow, deliberate scraping at my bedroom door. Fingers, impossibly long, dragging across the wood. My pulse threatened to tear my eardrums. I pressed myself flat against the corner of the wall, gripping the edge of the bed as if it could anchor me to reality. And the voice whispered again, this time right outside the door, close enough that I could feel the air shift with its presence. "It's your turn now. We've waited so long. I know you're listening." I wanted to believe I could withstand it. But the knocking was relentless, scraping, thudding, and the voice, my voice, repeated my name over and over, in tones I didn't recognize. It wasn't asking anymore. It was demanding. I realized with a crushing certainty that opening the door wasn't a choice. It was inevitable. And when I finally turned my head toward it, through the thin barrier of wood, I understood the full terror of the situation. It had been waiting, patient, cunning, inside the walls of my own home. And it was exactly like me. I don't know how long I had been crouched in the corner of my bedroom, listening to the scraping, the whispering, the slow, deliberate thuds that shook the door like a heartbeat. Time had lost meaning. Every second bled into the next. I felt hollow, a shell of myself, tethered to the bed by fear and disbelief. Then, a sound I will never forget, the soft, almost reverent click of the bedroom doorknob turning. I froze, every fiber of my being screaming at me to move, to escape, to disappear. But my legs refused. The door inched open, a hair's breadth at a time, and the warped hallway beyond stretched impossibly, shadows pooling like liquid darkness. And there, standing in the threshold, was me. Not exactly me. My figure, my clothes, my posture, but the face was featureless, smooth, blank. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just pale skin stretched taut over a hollow skull. And yet, the feeling of recognition was immediate, horrifying. This was me, or at least the version of me that the knock had been shaping, learning, practicing. It raised a hand, the fingers unnaturally long, and pointed toward the bedroom. The whisper followed, now clear, insistent, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Come with me, it's your turn now." I stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the bed. My phone lay shattered on the floor, the screen dead, the camera unable to record this. The lights flickered, then went out completely. The room was swallowed by a darkness so complete it felt tangible, pressing against my skin, my lungs, my thoughts. I tried to scream, but only a strangled croak escaped. My reflection in the cracked mirror across the room. I hadn't even realized it was there, stared back at me with eyes that were mine, but moving independently, mocking me. Then the thing stepped forward. The air seemed to ripple around it, the shadows twisting in impossible directions. Its hand pressed against the space between us, and suddenly I felt it inside my head, probing, searching, shaping my memories, my fears, my very sense of self. I tried to fight it. I clawed at the floorboards, banged my fists against the bed frame, screamed my own name, anything to anchor myself. But the sensation grew, suffocating, consuming. And then it spoke in my voice, perfectly, horrifyingly. "You let me in, now I get to live." The moment it stepped fully into the room, I realized there was nowhere left to run. The bedroom walls rippled like water, the ceiling stretched impossibly high, the furniture warped and twisted, and the very floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Reality itself was bending, reshaping to accommodate this thing. I tried one last desperate act. I lunged at the door, slammed it, locked it, and held on with every ounce of strength I had. But the lock gave way. The doorknob turned in my hand from the other side. Slow, insistent. I heard my own voice laughing, whispering, mocking, coming from the hallway now. And then, in a single, silent instant, I understood the truth. This wasn't just a knock. It wasn't just a shape-shifting shadow or a copy. It was me, or what I had become after nights of fear and attention, studied and mimicked, perfected. It had learned me, and now it wanted to replace me. The last thing I remember before the darkness swallowed me completely was the sensation of two sets of eyes, my eyes, and the empty, featureless eyes of the thing meeting across the threshold. And then the knock started again. This time, it came from inside the room.